Welcome, welcome, welcome. Business Unfiltered podcast. It is here. It is time. It is 2021. We fucking made it. This is a show I've wanted to do for forever. I mean, I've been a podcast fan for years and years and years. Started with Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla, Mark Maron, you name it, I listened to it. I've always wanted to do one for myself. And after going through a year like we just did, why the hell not? Let's start one. So it's the Business Unfiltered podcast for me, covering a lot of stuff. Basically, selfishly, I want to go through and ask anybody in my network questions that I have about what they do. I want to learn why they do what they do, why they're successful, what they do. A lot of it's going to be an interview show. So I'm going to be learning through the process here of doing these things. You'll figure out soon that in my first interview, we did have some audio issues. I've since recorded a few other ones that we fixed the issue, but I apologize for this one. There will be a few things that you have to kind of work through, but we did go over some great things. But to continue on, what I wanted to do with this podcast is that I want this to be a space where we can learn, we can evolve, we can grow all together. I was going through my network of friends and professionals and people that I've met over the years, and I realized, like, holy shit, I know some seriously talented people. And these are not, Fortune 500 CEOs. These are not, people worth millions and millions of dollars, but they are everyday folks that work their butts off and are successful at what they do. And I just want to know why. I want to know what the through line is, what's the commonality when it comes to these. And so through the episodes, we'll be covering a number of different topics and just learning, kind of evolving and understanding what these people all do that brings them all together and that and gives them that success that we're all kind of looking and have a goal for. So the podcast, the idea was to have something that's a little more bite-sized. I don't need these to be 3-hour podcasts. I want them to be something that you guys can do on your drive in, maybe something on your lunch break, but most of these are going to be in the 20 to 30 minute range. I'll try and keep it short as best I can, especially with these intros. I have the tendency to ramble a bit, but again, I hope that you guys get something out of this. I know I have so far. They're going to be coming out every Wednesday. We'll see how you guys react to them, but this is a big test for me. I'm having fun with it so far. It's a way for me to kind of get out there and ask some questions that I may not have asked when I see these people in everyday life. I'm able to kind of formulate some different discussion points, things like that, but it's supposed to be fun. I'm having fun with it, and I'm really loving everything that we've done so far. So in this first episode 1, I talk with the co-founder of Hapa's Brewing Company, Derek Tam. He's a friend of mine that I've known for 20 years. And he's just a very driven guy. The guy just doesn't stop working. He's a wealth advisor, financial planner, as well as the founder of a very successful brewing company here in the San Jose Bay Area. And we cover a number of topics. We talk about fear of failure, the importance of mentorship, work-life balance. We cover a lot. And he's a great dude. I could talk to him for hours. And the beer that they make is fucking great. We're very lucky, me being a friend of his, to have him around. Those who know me will probably know that he just opened up his second location a few months back in our hometown of Los Gatos. But if you don't know, you'll have to check out his breweries. He has one in San Jose and he has one in Los Gatos. Great beer, great guy. Without further ado, let's take a look and let's hear from Derek. So thanks again and talk soon. Episode 1 of the Unfiltered Business Podcast. We got Derek Tam here. He is the co-founder of Hapa's Brewing Company here in San Jose. And you actually just opened your second location. I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
I actually had a chance to go over there 2 weekends ago, and I was really impressed, man. The place looks great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was a long time coming, so we're happy to be here and I'm back in our hometown.
Yeah, I love that. So today's episode, I kind of want to talk about, the hustle and the grind. You're one of the harder working people that I know, and I really respect that about you. And I kind of I wanted to hear your mindset. And like, does that mean anything to you when I say that you work hard? Is that just something that you do? Is that something you have in mind that I have to do? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't think I'm from a skill set perspective. I'm not. I'm kind of a good in everything kind of thing, and that's not to brag because I wish I was great in something. It's more of a okay. If I know I'm good in things, what can I control and bring to the table? Whether it's life or work or friends, family, whatever it is, and one of those is obviously work ethic and just kind of keeping the engines going, and I think it's just there's something to be said about that in terms of just trying to just always grind and always just I always try and think like, okay, someone might be smarter than me or whatever, be more successful, but I hope to think that no one will work harder at whatever I'm doing. That's what I try and keep at, right? It is just to always work hard, and there's going to be wins and losses with that, but yeah, I think that's, I don't know. I mean, obviously family was a big, both my parents worked and my brother, they're all very, very hard workers. So I just think it was instilled at a young age.
Well, it's funny because you did say like, I don't think I'm great at anything. I think I'm good. And it's like, I can push that forward. But I think talking to people that you may know, they may disagree, right? Like, I mean, I've known you for probably coming up on like 20 years now. It's crazy to even say that.
Yeah, probably, yeah, more than that.
But like, I mean, maybe like 18, 20 years, something like that. But you were a great athlete, always good student. I mean, it was just something that we used to call you the golden child. I mean, you're a few years older than me, but it was just something that like, Derek, I mean, you joined the baseball team your senior year. You were like one of the best players in the league. It's just like one of those things where you seem to pick things up. And when you say that you think of yourself as good, not great, it's interesting because I think that's one of the reasons why you probably do work as hard as you can. Like, I'm assuming you're hard on yourself, right? You expect a lot out of yourself. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like talking to successful people, it's like, what is the difference between them and others, right?
Yeah, I think there's a saying that's like always be happy but never be satisfied, and kind of that. Okay, like knowing that it's okay to not be perfect, and very much so. I'm very aware of that in many different aspects of my life, but also is saying, okay, like let's continue to know that there are people who do, whether it's business specifically, that do it better than you, and how can we learn from them, but also knowing that like if things are successful is saying, okay, great, now you can always make something better, you can always be better at your personally and professionally, so kind of keeping that right balance and not being too hard where it's just you kind of tailspin out, but also not being too high on the mountain where there's always someone better than you out there in anything, so it's just trying to achieve that.
Right. Thinking that you found the perfect recipe is probably the recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah, exactly.
On and making
exactly. Yeah, Brian, my business partner, Brian.
Well, I want to take
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to take it back just a little bit. So I was doing some digging on you. I know you a little bit. So you went to USD. Mm-hmm. You studied finance.
Yeah.
Like, where does beer come into all this?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not really the typical journey, right?
No, and Brian is the same way. My business partner, who's also a Las Vegas guy, he's the head beer master. Yeah. Right? He and I just started brewing, just like
Harvard guy, right?
Harvard kid, yeah. So even more so. Yeah. When we just after college, we just decided before we started our careers just to start home brewing, and just kept on grinding at it and kept on trying to just talk about the dream that every kind of home brewer I think has, where it's like, why can't we do this? Just because we didn't, there were a lot of probably reasons why not to, but one of them was saying, well, why can't we, right? And I think that's anything when you start your own business, is saying, well, why can't I do that? It's just, there's a difference between taking that next step and just kind of always dreaming about it. So I think the finance background really has helped, because so much of running any business, product, service, otherwise, is, part of it is obviously what you're delivering, but then also is all the other things that go into it, whether it's operations, the books, budgeting, all that stuff can really translate over
right.
into
it's a business.
Sure, yeah, it's a business, right? Whether you're selling whatever type of widget, right? And it just so happens to be a very cool product in beer, but I mean, it could have been anything else that can really help with that finance background for sure.
Yeah. I mean, how many years would you say you and Brian were messing around? Like, 'cause you guys were roommates for a while too, right?
Yeah, well, we lived like down the street. We were at each other's house quite
Okay.
a bit after college,
Yeah.
and we probably, let's see, we started in 2000 and kind of goofing around in 2007, and then we kind of pulled the trigger on, okay, let's try and do this and find a place in 2013-ish. So 4 to 6 or so years just of like goofing around, taking over his mom's garage and just to kind of expand out that whole homebrew system. So thanks to Barb for letting us do that for 10 years.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up, and I apologize for interrupting. I wanted to kind of know that, what was the moment when you were like, this maybe become more of a hobby, right? Like when was the moment when you were like, hey, Brian, like, let's actually go for it?
Yeah, we get that question a lot, and I don't think there was a moment where it's like light went on. I just think we just started taking steps. Like, hey, let's start looking at real estate. We always wanted to do it back in our hometown. We realized, this is obviously over a decade ago, where we're saying, okay, let's see what's out there. Let's see, like, just starting to run the numbers. How much we would need to raise? How much would even like a lease for a commercial spot, and knowing what is a conditional use permit, like all these weird things that you just solely have to start to peel back. So we just kind of started digging down. Brian and I would talk all the time about, hey, let's go check out this, talk to the people. Well, they don't want a brewery here or whatever, and kind of seeing what the appetite was in different areas. And then just looking at what the competitive landscape was as well. And we're saying, look, this is, we had then by that point moved up to the city with our respective girlfriends at the time, now wives, not living together, but in the city. And we just had said, let's start looking in the South Bay. There's still such a untapped area of a huge market, not only population wise, but just in craft drinkers, that you didn't see in San Francisco, East Bay, even, obviously San Diego and Portland, all the big heavy hitters, where it's saying, well, why wouldn't the South Bay? And a lot of it is, the price per square foot, the amount of warehouse space type, availability for things. So, it kind of, we looked for a long time, and Jeff Hubbard, who's our commercial broker, who's a Los Gatos guy as well. I mean, poor guy. Luckily, we actually pulled the trigger on now the second spot, so it's somewhat worth his time. But man, he must have showed us 50 spots, and that was after filtering it through on the internet, right? And so, so it was a tough find, and we got we kind of struck lightning at a good time in San Jose. Great spot, North Willow Glen there, and then then the second one with the opening up a place in Los Gatos was always a dream.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk more about like kind of the business side of things, but the part that I want to hone in on a little bit is like, you were doing all this stuff and you're still working. You and Brian both had your other jobs that you were doing. I mean, where is it just the passion that kind of fueled you to get this done, or was there something else kind of pushing you guys forward?
Yeah, I think it was kind of, everyone has their hobbies, right? And I think that was just became our hobby. Everyone has, outside the 9 to 5, and whether it's commuting or whatever, or weekends, that was either brewing on the weekends or looking at other spots in the mornings or late afternoons. And that was just kind of our hobby. And that was kind of seeing something as substantial, well, obviously what it is now, but even back then, is saying what it could be, was definitely the fuel that gave us the energy to keep going. Because we're like, this could be something cool. This isn't just like some little side project. Let's try and do this. And I think it just kind of started to snowball, and it wasn't like we had this big, aha moment, or, we just, knew it was going to be successful from the beginning, kind of thing. It was like, okay, let's just see it, and let's just try it. And then luckily, Brian's a great business partner, and we just very yin and yang on so many different items. And we just kind of rolled the dice, and here we are today.
Yeah, it's almost like you refuse to fail, right? It's like, hey,
exactly. I mean, the fear of failure is a great driver of motivation, and I think that's the other thing, similar to in your situation, it's like the fear of failure can be very unnerving, but also it's the greatest motivation, especially you have kids and providing for them. I mean, that's, you want to get up in the morning, that is no problem to get you up in the morning.
I mean, this being episode 1, I'll share this with you. It's like this sounds silly because we're just talking to each other. It's not live or anything like that. But, I legitimately had a nightmare last night. And I was like, that's why I need to do this dumb podcast, right? It's like, I need to do it because I'm scared, right? It's almost like a calling. So yeah, I totally get that. And I have this for another topic on another podcast I'm speaking to someone with, but I think the sports background that we have, the team mentality, all that kind of stuff, like totally helps in the business side of the world. Like being able to visualize success, having success in our past, like there's a belief in ourselves that I think some people who may not have lived in that world don't have.
Right.
So it's,
right. Being a team player, being a leader, being a captain, all that stuff completely translates. And that's one of the things when we hire people. I mean, we have a lot of former collegiate athletes or just high school athletes that understand that, right? Because you're not only producing a product, but you got to do it with teammates. You got to do it, for the whole team. And that's a huge, that work ethic that I think is not I say lost, but it is really minimized in our society, where it's like team sports is one of the greatest things that I think helped me, be where I am. Obviously education as well, but part of it has been huge.
Yeah, there's something about like, I remember one of the things that my coaches taught me especially when I got to like junior college and then my 4-year, was like, when you put that hat on, you're representing the team. And I think about that in terms of like the brand, right? Mm-hmm. You have employees that are representing the brand, because you can't be there all day, all night. Like you got to trust these people to serve your beer, to make your beer, you name it. And there's something about having that leadership and being able to push through all that stuff that's really, really helpful. And just like you draw on all that experience that we had growing up.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great point.
So I was looking up again, doing a little research on you guys, and the name Peter Burrell came into play. I wanted to know your relationship with that, where that came from.
Yeah, so Uncle Pete is he's kind of our third guy, and he actually is one of Brian's good friends' uncle. And when we started doing this, we started talking to people, close friends, kind of feeling out people what they thought of the idea, if we were just crazy or stupid. And he's one of our friends said, talk to my uncle. He runs a brewery, like bar and grill up in Petaluma, Santa Rosa area. And so Brian actually quit his Google job and went and brewed with him for about a year while I figured out kind of
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so where we're going to be. So got used to the big system, kind of understand what the ins and outs of somewhat of brewing 4 people looks like.
Right.
And so he's a third partner that has really been a great advisor to us to get where we are. Right, a lot of probably saved us a lot of missteps in the beginning, and just ongoing with recipes for Brian, and just kind of if I have a question about whether it's QuickBooks or just kind of how he did it, especially with Los Gatos with food now. He and his wife have just been tremendous when it comes to being that advisor role, but also letting us do our thing as well, because he is a couple hours away. So it's been great, and kind of that nice little safety net that we had to have an advisor, because we had no business being in this business.
Well, on your website, you said the word mentor, and mentor means I had a mentor at my previous employer. He taught me, I wouldn't say everything I know, but like he gave me the foundation to kind of do what I'm doing now. And, I can't thank him enough for that. And I think it's important for other people to understand that, like, you don't have to dive into these things knowing everything. You just have to understand that there's people that you can ask questions and trust. And I think that relationship is a really powerful one that people underestimate.
Yeah, the mentor. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, and that's just more for life as well. Like you said,
right.
The previous mentor you had wasn't in what you're doing now, right? But
exactly. Yeah,
give you the guide, and that's either a good coach, a mentor, a family member, a friend, whatever it is. And
right, they can come in all shapes and forms, but just being able to have someone of be vulnerable in front of when something comes up that you aren't, like, again, it's so valuable to be able to have that person.
Yep, absolutely, yeah.
So I wanted to talk quickly about Hapa as the name, because I know the story. I love how it's kind of a play on words, and it has to do with you and Brian. Why don't you share kind of the thoughts behind that?
So that's probably the number 2 question we get. One is how we got into this. Number 2 is what does Hapa's mean? The literal meaning of it. Right. It's a Pacific Islander term that means mixed race. So a lot of people in Hawaii, for example, a blend of cultures from Asia and here in America. And when you have a kid or you have a mixed race kid, they are known as a Hapa. So it's kind of you're half Asian, half white. And there's a lot of different interpretations of it from different people. It started in Japan or whatever, but we take it as being half Asian, half white. And Brian's half Japanese, half white, and I'm half Chinese, half white. And it was actually one of the first or second brews that we did where I just got back from Hawaii, and I was like, "Hey, do you ever get called Hapa?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have when I've been to Hawaii, because you don't quite look full Asian, but you're kind of mixed." And I was like, "Oh, man," and either one of us said it. I was like, "That'd be a really cool name for a brewery, because it's like kind of sounds like hop. It's spelled differently, but sounds like hops. It's mixed ingredients, which beer is, mixed race. And it's who we are." And I think that was just kind of that was a cool moment where we just we're like, okay, well, at least we have the name now. We have to do about 99.9% of the other stuff, but.
Right. My wife is a Hapa too. I never even.
Yeah.
No, I love. I think it just totally works, and I was doing more research last night on just because I know you're a finance guy and you're a numbers guy, and I was looking. I think it was called like the Brewers Association. It's like a forum for.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
Along the lines of like the success rate of like microbreweries, things like that, popping up is somewhere in like the 32, 34 percentile in the first 2 years, like 60 some odd percent.
And like, when you hear that stuff, was there any fear or doubt there that, maybe this wasn't going to happen, or does it go
back to like, we refuse to fail?
Yeah, a combination of both. I mean, we saw the numbers. The breweries are probably slightly better than restaurants, right? Just because you only have one thing with beer, and that's where we started. And we talked about maybe doing food, but we're like, look, first of all, we have very little business being in the beer business. Let's definitely not get into the food business, because we know the stats on restaurants and doing that. So we saw those numbers.
One at a time.
Right, one at a time. One problem at a time. And we saw those numbers, and we just said, look, I mean, this is why we could fail, and this is why we could succeed. And the pros outweigh the cons, and we still know the risks, right? I mean, even going through a pandemic, there's tons of risks for our business, and I get that. But I think given our product, given where we are, given our location, that again, the probability of success, outweighs the ability to just give up and fail.
Right, and potentially that regret that you may have for never going for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The last thing I wanted to wrap this up on was the other thing that I respect about you and kind of your way about going about these things is, we live in a social media world. So like
I see everything that you guys are doing, without actually stalking. So, but
like what I respect about you and what I struggle with when I'm trying to get better at is like, you take the kids out, you guys go on vacation, you guys travel, you guys still do all the things, even though, you're still a financial advisor, you're running 2, brewery locations now. It's like, how are you able to separate, or that work-life balance? Because I think that's a struggle for a lot of entrepreneurs and things like that.
Yeah, I struggle with it for sure. I know my wife would probably agree that I struggle with it. I just think you have to try and compartmentalize a lot of things with work and life, and make sure that there's nothing better than coming home to 2 kids giving you a hug, for sure, right? That's like the best feeling in the world. Having a supportive wife is top there for both Brian and I. And then just having a great team. I mean, we talked about in the beginning is you have to be able to trust your people. You can't be at both locations 24/7. And luckily we have a great staff that is able to carry that on if we're not here. And then, the last one would probably be technology. There's, the way you can run businesses now with internet connection, whether it's, paying stuff online, checks, looking at, even if it's looking at how busy you are without bothering your team, right? And looking on the camera. So there's little stuff like that, that you're able to communicate, you're able to just be effective with people, and just to be able to do that when, after the kids have gone home and just log on and take care of some work. 10, 20 years ago, you couldn't do that. You would have to be here for everything. And it'd take a lot more time, and you can just be a lot more efficient now with the use of technology. So I think I'm very fortunate to be living where we are right now in terms of, the world that we live in, because of those aspects and to try and be successful.
Like a double-edged sword too, because it's great. I can work,
but because of that, I feel like I have to work everywhere. It's
hard to disconnect sometimes. So
absolutely. My wife and I talk about that all the time. Is we just we went up to a cabin a couple weeks ago, and she's like, "Don't worry, they have Wi-Fi up there." I was like, "Okay, cool."
She knows.
And kind of tongue in cheek, but pretty true, right? I mean, taking a few days off it is tough for me, and just not even just I'm always just seeing what's in the pipeline of emails or calls or whatever it is. You couldn't do that a while back, so definitely fortunate to be able to do that.
Well, Derek, this has been great. I really appreciate it. And it's December 8th, we just had the Silicon Valley lockdown basically. So I want to give you a chance to kind of tell people how they can help support. So what are you guys doing at both locations?
Yeah, so both locations, fun times. I feel like we're in a little deja vu of this year that won't end. But we're doing pickups, deliveries, both locations. HapasBrewing.com. You can go on, order beer to go. You can get it delivered within 10 miles of radius of each location. So we'll be doing that, and then also food here at Los Gatos to go and pick up and delivery. And then we're even going to can some. We have a crowler machine, so we're going to can some wine as well. So you can really just get it all for the holidays.
I love it, man. Well, I really appreciate the time in this.
Thanks for being guest number one, dude.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.